Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Amobi Okugo, host of Money Talks, a new podcast from a frugal athlete in partnership with Billion or Bust Media. Money Talks explores the world of business behind professional athletes. I speak with financial advisors, business managers, marketing and PR professionals who specialize in running the business of being a pro athlete. Tune into Money Talks on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find new episodes on billionourbustmedia.com and afrugalathlete.com. Again, billionourbustmedia.com or afrugalathlete.com.
All right, good folks, welcome to the 2 Cents Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Richardson, and as always, we encourage you to like, subscribe, and interact with us like you guys have been doing. I've been loving a lot of the, comments in the DMs and a lot of the proposed things that you guys want to discuss. I'm listening. I will get into it. I think it's important that we have something for everybody, and I think it's important that we interact with all of our peoples to let them know not only do we hear you, but we're going to discuss the things that you guys want to hear. And today I'm really excited. I'm excited for a number of reasons. Obviously, I have a special guest, and those of you who are watching the recording, well, I guess it's not a secret. The man, the myth, the legend himself, the great former Ohio State great. Yeah, we know he was a great running back, but I want you guys to know more about who he is as a person. The man he's become is wildly impressive, and the inspiration that he is continuing to be for other brothers and sisters out there and kids and even adults who look up to this guy because of his journey, because of the decisions he made to get to where he is today, I think is a beautiful thing, and I'm going to have him talk a little bit about that. But all right, I'm going to quit with the intro and all of that dramatic stuff. We have Maurice Clarett is in the building. If I could simulate like a round of applause with some sort of after show editing, I would do that. Let me tell you a little bit about this guy before I start firing questions at him and letting him talk. This is a dude who at one point was the best running back under the age of 20 on planet Earth. And no one would argue that he was even better running back than all the seniors when he was a true freshman at Ohio State. Took the league by storm. The league, I mean, is the college football league. He just took it, and no one expected this. And I got tons of little stories of things that I recall from when I was 18, coming in as a true freshman and seeing this guy. And it's crazy because we were freshmen together at Ohio State. Came in the first year of Jim Tressel's full recruiting tour that he did, where I forgot all about that. Yeah, we were his first year. We were Jim Tressel's first recruiting class. He was there the year before where they went to the Outback Bowl, but that wasn't his. He got the job late. Yeah. That was John Cooper's class. We were his first recruiting class, and we were the number 1 class in the nation that year. Some had us number 2, but let's be real. We was nice. You talking about guys like Maurice Clarett. You talking about guys like Troy Smith, who eventually won the Heisman. You talking about guys like Santonio Holmes, who was a former Super Bowl MVP. Let's not forget that. You're talking about guys like Rob Sims, who was an offensive lineman, great for years in the league. Nick Mango, who was a 6-time Pro Bowler. I mean, this class was loaded with animals, man, monsters, just supremely talented guys and great human beings. Oh, and by the way, your host was a part of this class too. Yeah. I snuck in through the back door of this class, but ended up being all right. Got my little 6 years in the league, did all right. We were talented. We were a tight-knit group, and it all started. He might disagree with this, but to me, it all started with this guy. When a lot of us knew Ohio State had signed Maurice Clarett at the time, everyone knew he was the best player in high school football. That was a countrywide thing. That wasn't just in Ohio. He was like the LeBron James of high school football at the time. Like everyone was like, "Oh my God, Ohio State landed this dude," and he didn't even make it too hard for him. I mean, he committed and was like, "No, I'm gonna be a Buckeye," and I think that was
they didn't offer me a scholarship. That's what people forget.
Oh, hold on. No. Breaking news. Speak on it.
No, they didn't. They just they never offered me a scholarship. I just came back my junior year, and I had I set out. This would happen. I set out 5 games in my junior year because I had an ankle surgery. Yeah, and I came back and I had about 1,300 yards in the last 5 games. Jesus. And what happened was that I just had a confidence, and I said, man, I want to stay in the state because I had watched it was Liddell and those other guys play, and this was Jonathan Wells' senior season, obviously.
J-Dub, shout out J-Dub, that's the big homie.
Yeah, shout out to Jonathan. And what ended up happening was I was like, man, I can go ahead and play at Ohio State. And I knew Jim Tressel was there, so I just called Tressel up during the spring, and I said, hey, I'm coming to Ohio State. And then he was like, all right. And, it was kind of funny because he didn't ask. He didn't offer me. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, hey, you all offer me at the end of the year. So it was weird and awkward because he didn't offer me, and he didn't have a standing offer. But as the season went on, my senior year, I started having more success. And then he called me back. He was like, yo, did that offer still stand? Or does that commitment still stand?
You knew you had an offer. They might not have formally offered you, but
no. So I mean,
informally, you could have gone anywhere on planet Earth you wanted.
Yeah. So just imagine. I mean, but it like, so Tennessee had came and offered me, Notre Dame had came and offered me, but Ohio State didn't actually say, hey, we want to, give you a scholarship. And I always thought that, like, me and Coach Truss always joked about that. And he just called me like, yo, I know that you're doing good this year, but do you still want to come down here? So I was like, yeah, man, I'll be there. But it was cool.
That's awesome. Cool. There's a lot just from that comment right there that you just made. It makes me want to get into some other things when you talk about schools and offering and just the way the game of recruiting has changed so much since we were,
yes,
17 years old.
Drastically.
Just the whole recruiting landscape is vastly different. Yes, social media changed everything, and it changed the way they have to govern recruiting just because everyone's so accessible now, and everyone knows everyone. And now kids have, their huddle accounts, and they're promoting all their best plays on YouTube and on their Instagrams. And now coaches can find kids in a variety of different ways. It used to just be, word of mouth. Hey, so and so got a good back. Now it's just.
You can look online. I don't know. It's two things I feel about that because obviously I go to a tremendous amount of schools and I speak and I even work with schools still now. And twofold, from a player side, for kids who probably come from programs or schools who, didn't have a great video guy or a coach who had the time to put their stuff together and put it in the mail and mail it out. I think that those kids benefit. But then also I think that it becomes cumbersome for a kid when you receive all of this attention from all of these schools because all these schools have to, they have to have constant contact with you. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And then where that affects a kid becomes delusional on a certain degree. I just call it what it is. Just put it in this. When you start thinking, it just brought like a frame of a thought in my mind. When we were in high school, if you wanted to be on like a highlight tape or on the news later on at night or to be known, you had to actually like do something, right? And this is serious, you know what I'm saying?
Had to be good,
you had to be good. And you had to create like a fan base, and people had to like go say, okay, I watched this guy's film and he's done something and I'm impressed with it, you know what I'm saying? But now, you can grab your whole season film and after the game, you can have somebody edit like every single moment and it doesn't really put a body of work together where you've put together a full season or, week 4, week 5, you say, hey, I got to turn it up for the rest of the season. And, back when we were playing and you have to finish out strong in order for people to recruit you. And so you can have, just as a person can put filters on pictures, you can kind of put a filter on your huddle tape and you begin to.
Great way to put it.
You know what I'm saying?
That's a great way to put it.
It's false advertisement. And so then they'll end up getting a player. And I see this all the time. That's how, like, you don't know it, but that's how this huddle or the portal for NCAA has become a thing. And so what happens is these coach, they get like bad goods. So like it's kind of like you buy a lemon car, right? These kids come and this is serious, bro.
They think they're getting a Ferrari and the engine's really a Honda Civic in
there.
there.
So if you can only be a highlight player and you really can't play a whole game, right? And you can't put together a season, put together a game, and you know what I'm talking about. And it's a whole lot more. You got to put together an off season. You put together film study. When you get in there with somebody who's been conditioned with good coaching and just a sound player and somebody who can listen and actually play the game, it's hard for you. And so then these kids become frustrated because it's not like, hey, this coach is not loving me up and telling me how good I am and I have to actually compete. And I think that's where kids run and they transfer and all that other stuff comes into play.
You know what name comes to mind when you start talking about basically, and on my show, we just call it how it is.
Yeah.
You're talking about schools getting catfished.
Oh, yeah.
Right? They're getting
schools get catfished.
Long-legged, beautiful, busty.
Yes.
And then that filter come off, and what shows up at your door
you be
is a 5'1" troll. And you like, wait, hold on, that's not what I ordered. Yeah. It's like you order food at DoorDash and the food show up cold. The dude that brought it done messed it all. It's spread all across the bag. Yes. So here's what
you said. He get catfish. Exactly.
And I hate to put it. And here's the thing, folks. This is not just in sports. This is in music, entertainment. You can manufacture celebrity. You can manufacture popularity. What you can't manufacture, though, is a championship, a great football team, top to bottom. You can't manufacture an artist who's going to go platinum for 10, 12 years like a Beyonce or a Jay-Z or one. You can't manufacture real talent. You can just manufacture a quick sale here or there.
Absolutely.
And that's what's happening in the sport of football. And it's so interesting. The way you just put it is brilliant because that's what's happening. And it brings to mind, this is not a shot at this young kid because he's still in college. And y'all know how I feel about these young athletes. They're just, I know people love to hold them to the standard of adults. But in a lot of senses, man, these are just kids, man, trying to figure it out. But when you think about the Las Vegas quarterback that Ohio State had named Tate Martell, when he came in and he had a hype train. I mean, I looked him up and he had like 100,000 followers on Twitter and all this. And I was like, and coming out of high school, and he was only, I'm like, this kid's only like 5'10 and a half. You know, he's kind of quick, but not that fast. He has a couple highlight plays, but if you watch his huddle highlights, it looks like this dude is out there and one mixtaping other high school kids and just going crazy. But it's really like 8 highlights. And then he gets boots on campus at Ohio State. And, you know, I stay involved with these youngsters on the team. And a lot of them are like, nah, he ain't really like that. He cool, but he's not really. And before you know it, the coaches aren't showing him the love that he was used to hearing during the recruiting trail.
Absolutely.
Everyone's not patting him on the ass. And everyone's not, hey, you're doing great. And before you know it, it's like, you falling down the depth chart. Next thing you know, the portal opens. And you find out so-and-so has entered their name in the portal. And these kids are thinking, well, the grass will be greener somewhere else, man. These dudes, they hate because that's, and I hate to generalize, but that's the millennial mentality. It's like if no one likes what you're doing, they're hating. It's not hating. Sometimes you're not that good.
Yeah.
Sometimes you
got
work
reality.
to do,
it's
right?
reality.
It's not always hate. If someone's critiquing you, they're critiquing you because they want you to get better, not because they're hating.
Yes,
so
I agree.
My man heads down to Miami.
Yeah.
And where's he
I
at
thought it was
right
gonna
now?
be gifted to him.
Back on the bench.
Oh, so he's not starting down there.
No.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Of course not.
No.
Well, you thought you were going to start just because you're somewhere different? So you still have top-tier athletes. You got to compete with no matter what school you go to.
Yes.
But the reality of his journey, and I don't want to make this this episode about Tate Martell. It's not about him. It's about kids like him.
Point.
Kids. And the point is, reality of it is, had you not edited your film so well coming out, had your numbers not been boosted by your lack of competition or maybe blowout games, you would have ended up at like Central Michigan. And you would have thrived there because that's really where your talent level is. That's probably where you should have been in the MAC conference kicking butt.
But I tell you what, entering a Central Michigan, entering a Toledo, entering a Bowling Green, and being able to play where you're honestly at and allowed to be coached from there is what kids should accept.
And develop.
Yeah, and develop. And I think like a lot of times.
You can still go to the league from there. Guys do it all the time.
I was just about to get into that. A lot of things we think like the bigger school automatically means more opportunity to get to the NFL. And so for guys who've been, you realize the evaluation process is a lot more extensive than just saying, hey, this guy went to one of these Power 5 schools. People look for guys who have skill, people who can be team players. You know, I'm preaching to the choir when I'm talking to you, but, that's a message that, I think I'll never stop saying to these guys, even when they're in high school or in college, that it doesn't matter where you at. The evaluation process at that level, at the highest level, is a lot more extensive than, you went to these Power 5 schools. In your case in point, you can watch any Monday night, Thursday night football game when they start doing the guys come on TV and they talk about where they're from.
Absolutely.
Or they talk about the starters. You'd be like, man, all these guys, if you look 4 years ago, 5 years ago, these weren't the same guys who were the top 4 or 5 guys in your class.
Absolutely.
What usually happens is, guys who are supposed to make it and who become, great football players, they make it, and guys who are not, they fizzle out, and that's
the
part of it.
The cream will rise.
Yeah, always, 100%.
And I want people, kids to understand that it's not where you start, man. It's what skill set you build while you're working towards perfecting your craft. That'll determine where you end up. You can start anywhere, but if you build a skill set and you work your balls off every damn day, man, you can do it. It's not. And listen, I don't want to get too much into it, but I do want to tie this all back into you and what you're doing and where you're at in your life right now, because today's episode is about you. So that it's being about you, and for those who are just tuning in, our guest today is Maurice Clarett, former Ohio State great, also played for the Denver Broncos, also, gives back to his community, also does so many things that we're going to get into right now. Tell me right now, have a huge book coming out. You had the release. I know the majority, if not all, of your sales are on your website. The book's called One and Done.
Yeah, One and Done. How I started my life how my life started after my football career ended.
Real life started.
Yes.
Once all that football stuff ended.
Yeah, and I think just with a lot of guys, I just don't. I don't think we ever come to the realization that life will start. Or I think when you're young, you think like when you hit 30 or you get close to 30 that you think that you'll be old. And when you're young, when you're 18, 30 seems so distant, or just anything
seems light years away.
Yeah, it seems like
especially for an athlete.
Especially for an athlete, or you think that you'll have it figured out, or you'll figure it out then. And the book was like, it's 3 years in the making. And who wrote it with me was Bob Eckhart. Bob used to be a tutor down at Ohio State. Absolutely. And just throughout my journey, he was a tutor when I was there, and we kind of stayed in touch. Even when I was in prison and got out of prison. And just through the course of my life, I just had learned so much, and I would talk to him about all of what I learned. We never talked about per se doing a book now, but it just kind of naturally came. And I was like, man, I wish I could just document all this stuff and give it away to people as a learning tool. And so like the book isn't like a sort of look at me moment. I'm cool. Your life is better than mine. It's more like my life is very similar to most student athletes. The only thing that made my situation different was. One, I won a championship as an 18-year-old kid, and two, Ohio State's brand is real big, and so.
And you were a whole lot better than most of us when we were 18.
Yes, I mean, so you just.
That's not fair though. You was overdeveloped, motherfucker.
Nah.
I had never seen an 18-year-old who could squat 600 pounds. I had never seen an 18-year-old who did it in Timberlands in the weight room. That was wild. I'd never seen an 18-year-old walk in day one on campus and tell the starting running back, "Hey man, there's still time to transfer, bro."
No,
if you want to,
that was arrogance, man.
If you want to move on, you should probably do that because I exist. I'm here. I've arrived.
Nah, that's arrogant.
And you
I apologize
like it every day.
I apologize.
You know what? Is it arrogance? Is it hubris? Is it just youth and blissful confidence in yourself? Hell yes. But is that necessary?
Yes. I was going to
compete at that level and take yourself to that place every day in a sport as physical as football, right?
Yeah. So I tell you like this. So as well as I know, in playing any sport, any competitive anything, even in business. So I compete in business, and you really have to be crazy. You have to believe that because there's more. So the athlete that shows up on Saturday, I know we kind of bouncing around, but I enjoy stuff like this,
Me too.
like just whatever, right? So. The athlete that shows up on Saturday, people don't realize that prior to that moment that there was a tremendous amount of doubt that guy had to overcome just to even get to that space, right? Yeah. And you've probably done a million times of self-talk. You've probably been more disappointed in yourself when you went to practice and things didn't work out the way you wanted to, or your name didn't move further up on the depth chart as fast as you wanted to. And so, you know what I'm saying?
I redshirted while y'all was out there winning that championship. I had to watch.
But you had to go through but you had to process those emotions too.
Absolutely.
And then you had to, how do I deal with this? And there's so much more to it. And so you get to a point where you get into that space and then you say, okay, man, I'm better than all these guys. And then you start to, I've learned this at a young age too, right? So people are not comfortable with openly competing with each other, right? So a person in football, so even though football is dubbed the ultimate team sport, that may be good for defense, but in regards to running backs and quarterbacks where there's only one position, it's not. It's the most selfish positions on the field.
I never thought about that dynamic of those specific positions, right?
So offensive
line.
line.
Can only be one at a time on the field.
Offensive line, you have 5. Receivers, you have a core. Yeah. Defensive line, that's a group mentality. You rotate, and then there's people everywhere. But with those two positions, it's probably the most selfish position. And then I really don't want you to have success because your success limits my availability to play. Sure. You feel where I'm coming from?
Takes food out of my mouth every time you eat.
Every time you eat. And so I used to say this to guys because guys would never be comfortable with competing. Just like guys are like – guys, when they want to fight people in their head, they have like this awesome fight in their head, but when they go in there and fight, it just doesn't like pan out the way that they have it in their head. So I said, okay, let me tell these guys, and I was just making digs at them, right? And I was like, man, I'm gonna start, right? And so this is what I tell like what is his name, Ross, Lydell Ross, and Maurice Hall. And so now I force
these. Who were two very good backs, by the way, for Ohio State.
100%.
And they were there before you, and they were having really good seasons before you.
Yes.
And they're thinking, oh yeah. I'm about to be the man.
But when you openly compete against somebody or you tell somebody, now that forces that person to be focused all times a day. So then I would do stuff to aggravate them. I would show up before them. And I knew that they didn't want to show up early. Then I would stay later than them. Then I would watch more film than them. Then when we were at practice, I would make sure I run 230, 40 yards more than them. So I would mentally try to beat these guys up just to, like, let them defeat themselves.
We call that applying pressure.
Applying pressure to them. You know what I'm saying? And so now you either going to keep up and make me better or you just going to fall to the wayside. And you can kind of see that wears on a guy. You know what I'm saying? It wears on a guy.
And everyone's built for that.
And nah, bro, and that's kind of what
you know who you have so much in common with. And I didn't really make the connection until right now, and I should have made the connection a long, long time ago. It's a guy that I played with in 2011. My first time ever making the playoffs in the NFL was my 5th season in the NFL, and I was with the Seattle Seahawks, and we had a running back on that team named Marshawn Lynch.
My man.
And his mentality is just like yours, man.
My man.
Like, his mentality is like, you're going to have to kill me because I'm going to run right through your face every snap. I'm going to bang you every play. I don't care if you're a middle linebacker, if you're a safety, you're going to feel it. And I can take it. I bet you can.
And you're going to give up before I do.
So one of us going to break. I promise you it ain't going to be me. And he ran like that. Not at practice. He was cool at practice. But even in practice sometimes, he'll give you a little
I'm here.
Yeah, a little bang. Like, you know, even to me, like, it was times where, like, I'm chilling, not gonna wrap him up. We in just hard stuff up top, you know, shorts down low, and he'll still give me a little boom. I'm like, what are you doing? He was like, oh, okay. Hey, bro, like, I'm out here. And I'm like, all right. He'll be like, hey, hit me like I'm anybody else. Don't pull up because I'm, you know who I am. Like, come on. I'm like, okay, I like it.
He gotta get prepared. Yeah,
exactly, because he wants to be in the right headspace when it's time to go. Like, one of the coolest interviews I always remember is before. Is about 72 hours before they won a Super Bowl, and they had a media day, and he was interviewing with NFL Network, and Deion Sanders pulled up on him and said, you know, Marshawn, you ready for tomorrow's game? You know, how do you feel? Tell me about the defense. And he goes, man, look, 2 things. Like, 1, I'm just here because I don't get fined, and 2, I'm about that action boss. I ain't here for all this talk. That's not what legendary. I came here for. I came here to leave with a ring. I didn't come here to talk to you.
Yeah, that's legendary.
I didn't come here to interview with them. I came here to go beat the hell out of the Patriots and get my ring. And he got it. But that was such a dope mentality, and you at a very young age seem to have that same mentality, which is so strange to me because it makes me wonder what made you so mature and so poised, because that was the biggest difference between the rest of the freshmen and Maurice Clarett in 2002 is we were kids, you know, but you didn't come off like a kid. You came off as a dude with a plan. No,
but I think it's even the same thing to this day. I think if you ask the majority of people in their life what they want, they couldn't describe it to you. And even at a young age, or even now, I just know what I want, but I'm also not afraid to put myself out there. Like, people will settle. They will legitimately settle for something that they don't want, or they'll sign up and they'll be afraid to just actually.
They're afraid to compete for more.
Yeah, bro, or just be afraid to hold themselves accountable to actually chasing what they want. You know what I'm saying? So, like, you know,
fear of failure is scary.
Yes. So, or fear of failure, but then also a fear of, like, you knowing you're not doing everything to attain what you're saying you really want. And there's no alignment in that. You know what I'm saying? So if I really
fear of not being authentic to yourself, like not being true.
But it's easier to live that, and it's easier just to not tell anybody that's what you want, and it's easier to do that. And so I didn't want to come to Ohio State. I didn't want to compete to be in the rotation. I want to start here, and I'm going to start, and I'm going to do everything within my power. And whatever it is I decide to do, I'm going to focus on it. And so I can look back over my life in times where I didn't have success. Like, that was me not being able to handle just everything outside, just not being able to have the character or the experience in life to uphold that. But kind of like when I got my bearings back, it just really claiming this is what I want, and this is the process to get what I want, and this is what I have to do, and this is what I have to commit to. And people are just scared of commitment, bro. You know, so I really believe it in my heart, like, to focus on something, then commit yourself to something, and then not to have like a timeline. So like when you commit to something, like you commit to an idea to say, hey, are we walking here? You say, man, I'm taking media serious, right? You don't know when your big moment's going to break.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Matter of fact, and I don't want to cut you off, but just in that same vein, I'm going to put myself out there. I'm going to tell you guys exactly what it is I want. I was online and I looked it up and it's official. Stephen A. Smith is now the highest paid sportscaster at ESPN, you know, making over $8 million a year. I said a long time ago, I met Stephen A. Smith. He interviewed me when I was at Ohio State my senior year before the Michigan game. We were number 1 versus number 2. That was a really cool interview for me, and I knew at that moment, this was in 2007 or 2006, I knew at that moment that this dude's different, man. He has a different kind of flair.
You can feel it on him.
Personality, yeah.
You can see it.
I hung out with him in Miami during my 5th year in the NFL when I was down there in the off season, and I was just hanging out. I ran into him. He is in the same office as my uncle who works down there, and we had a quick little back and forth, and then that was it. And then I got a chance to meet Michael Wilbon, who does PTI on ESPN's at 5:30. Just shout out to Michael Wilbon, a fantastic guy, a Chicago dude. But Stephen A. is what I'm chasing. His base is in basketball, and he built his platform based around his knowledge of basketball and his interviews and being able to grind. Mine will be in football and my knowledge of that, and I hope that I can spread that to be able to cover other sports. But at some point in the future, you guys are going to be like, we were there the day Jay declared this is what he wanted. That's what I'm chasing, so I'm just letting you know. I'm not afraid to say it, and only because what you just said about fear of committing and the fear of putting yourself out there, you're right. And fear can be paralyzing and make you stagnant. And I refuse to be stagnant.
Yeah, so you got to ask yourself, like, so what happens when you basically kill yourself when you don't do it? Because you walk around knowing that that's what you want to become. So why not just align everything, your voice, your mission, your actions, and everything to become that person? And that's when the world moves out your way. Like, people are not definitive on what they want to be, and so they just kind of like loaf around through life. And I knew that just like at a very young age. Like, when you make a decision on what you want to become, everything else becomes clear. Everything you're supposed to do that day, everything you're supposed to be eating, reading, studying, everything becomes about that. And the biggest thing is that when you take time off and just say, I don't like saying that you have to make something happen in the timeline, is like probably one of the biggest things that you like defeat yourself with. And like, I've known that, right? The biggest thing is to develop the skills, and the skills will put you on the platform that you're supposed to be on. If you don't have the skills, or if you don't understand the operations of what you're supposed to be doing, then you won't do that.
You want whatever you want, but if you ain't built the skill set to have it, then you haven't earned it.
That's what separates the professionals from. I give you a quick example. Even when we sit here talking about this, and we were talking about Santonio, right? I remember Santonio. We would be walking off the field as freshmen, and he would be getting frustrated that he was obviously when he played scout team and he just had to look at the card, he was awesome. But when it came time to as a freshman, I'm just talking about as a freshman, when it came time to understand the plays, the concepts, the routes, and the rhyme and reason behind it from a football perspective, he didn't understand that early on. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
And so your innate ability to be a football player doesn't allow you to basically steward this platform. And so that's really in everything, in all business. And that's really just as a young kid, and even now when I see like super successful people know what they want. And there's like go out today. Just go out today. Just ask people. Go casually. Like, you out to eat, you out to dinner, you out hanging out. Go ask people, like, man, what is it that you want? People will flutter around, and then you got to ask yourself like that. Like, if you don't know what you want, if you have no definitive reasoning and no definitive mark on what you want to do, like, how can you take yourself serious? You know what I'm saying? And that's why people just float around through life and they get whatever life gives them, and I don't know. I just never wanted to do that. And there was at times in my life,
and that's the majority of folks out there. We're not picking on most people are like that. Like, I was like that for a while.
Myself included. Yeah.
Post NFL career, it was like, I don't know. I'm gonna kind of dabble around with this, dabble around with that. I don't know. Just we'll see what happens. Waiting for something to pop up and magically,
and nothing's gonna pop up.
Nothing's gonna pop up. You gotta make it pop. And the only way to make it pop is to a line you just used, which I've been using this line for a while, and I'm gonna title one day. I'm gonna write a book as well. I feel like the book won't be valid until I have way more success, and then people will actually listen. And when I do, I'm gonna entitle the book "Just Make a Decision."
Just make a decision. Yes.
Because once you make a decision, you said it verbatim what I would have said. Everything else gets out of the way. Yeah. Even in your mind, everything else clears out. I had a coach that would talk about defensive line play at the next level and hand placement and all these techniques and these nuances of the game that allow you to get to the quarterback or to get to the running back or to allow you to execute on game day. And one of the things he would always say was, he's like, Jay, you see too much. He was like, you're in your stance and you're seeing, the wide receiver motion. You're hearing the quarterback's cadence. You're seeing, your guys behind you where they're at. You're looking at the O-lineman's hands, knuckles, the back, feet.
Too much.
You look at the tip of the ball. He goes, dude, you're seeing too much, and it's too much coming in, too much information. You're trying to process. He goes, Jay, I know you got a good test score. You're a smart kid. I know that. He goes, and that's your problem. You think, you can process all this stuff. He goes, simplify it. See it all through a straw. Just see the one thing you're looking for. And the moment that ball moves, take off and then see the next thing. And the next thing will probably be the O-lineman's hands. Focus on his wrist. See if you can grab it. See if you can. And I didn't understand that. And then all of a sudden, when I started to do that, the game slowed down. And I said, oh, I see what he means. I was doing too much. So a lot of us are like that, man. Like we're either shotguns, shooting buckshot, and we hit we fired a buckshot and it sprayed, bird shot, it sprayed everywhere.
Absolutely.
You get a little piece of this, little piece of that, little piece of that, but you're not really hitting your goal. You got to be a sniper rifle. You got to set your scope just for the wind, humidity, pressure, all that stuff. Get everything in the sights, and then take one shot, bang, and just see that one thing.
And that's all you
That's
need.
how you hit goals. You can't have 17 goals. And sometimes you can't have a plan B. You got to lock in on plan A. You got to give it everything you got. And guess what? If it don't hit, now you go to plan B. You lock in on that with everything you got.
But I'm telling you, what I found out with that, even when people have a plan, they put too much like okay, you're not going to be Stephen A. next year. You hear where I'm coming from? Nobody wants to build a career. Nobody wants to build something, right? Like, we've got to this place where I have to take my success, put it on the internet, and boom, I'm a thing. No, that's like the the microwave generation, right?
Oh, yeah. Nobody want to put it in the oven.
No, nobody wants. There's a process to this stuff, bro. And
the oven tastes better?
It tastes a lot better. Yes, it tastes a lot better.
Banging.
And so that's kind of like how you got to view yourself with anything you build. Like, where am I at my process? And so, and not being mixed up in anybody's process. Like, just because you moving a little bit faster than me, becoming totally cool and comfortable with, like, cool, that's your journey. You know what I'm saying? You got a skill set. You might have different sets of opportunities, but based upon what I'm trying to do, what I'm trying to accomplish, this is my thing. And I think that no matter where I've been at, when my head was clear, like when my mind clear, my life is in the order it's supposed to be, I've always bought into that, where I don't let nobody's success, even if we the same age, we the same high school class, college class, man, this person moved faster than me. That's cool. Like, cool. That's great for them. You know what I'm saying? But this is my thing I'm developing. And when you give yourself a chance to develop, like, you'll naturally just get platforms you're supposed to be on. Like, you get where I'm coming from.
Absolutely. But hold on, because you're moving fast, and I want people to understand your process. You weren't always this Maurice Clarett, right?
No, not at all.
You weren't always this zen, enlightened individual who's laser focused. No. You were laser focused when we were young, but it was on different goals than they are now.
Yes.
And then life threw some curveballs at you. Some you hit, some you didn't, and you learn from all of them. Right? I mean, that, like we all do. Tell us about your process. What led to you having your enlightenment? What led to you having that moment where things quieted down and you were able to really hear? Tell me about your biggest pitfall and what went wrong to help turn your ship.
Yeah, we can walk through it. Like, even as a kid, you come out and you think that football is your end all to everything, and that you'll play and you'll be rich. And we come up in the MTV Cribs generation, right? If I make it to Cribs, I made it. You know what I'm saying? That was it. If you made it to that and you were able to get some money.
You had young guys around you who you saw making it.
Yes.
Like a LeBron James. Who somebody you were friends with in high school and at Ohio State. And you're like, he's getting paid. Like,
you see
I'm good at what I'm doing.
And brother, you see it all, and so on and so forth. And so for me and my step, and I get back to LeBron, right? And so for me and my transition of some sorts, when football took off, people can talk about how to become successful, but there's very few people who've written books on how you maintain and deal with success. And even as an 18-year-old kid, to walk into a stadium one day and say, hey, this is, I'm Joe Blow before game one, or just a prospect. Everybody's a prospect, right?
Sure.
And then when you go out and you have success, and then you have a tremendous amount of success after game one, it becomes a different thing. And no kid is used to all the adults, people who are supposed to guide you, advise you, to these people now acting like they're subservient to you. or they're just like kids in a way. You know what I'm saying? Because they have fun watching you play football and scoring touchdowns. And I wasn't like the best manager of my own notoriety and fame. And so at that point, I think like that's where the wheels fell off the cart. But then you fast forward it, and just even think about this. Just in 13 months, you go from being the best player in high school to 13 months later, you win everything you want to win in college. And then at that time, LeBron was
13 months.
13 months, bro. 13 months. I went from
your
USA.
life transformed.
Brother, 13 months I went from being the high school player of the nation to we won a national championship to after we're done with the championship, I go to Vegas. I'm out there with Steve
Your
Stout.
head probably couldn't have fit in your skull after that.
Bro, you just, it's so we look at Columbus now as a town who's used to winning championships and expecting to win, but this wasn't –
in 2002,
that wasn't a thing. No, this wasn't a thing. So this wasn't the case. You had you had like this apathetic moment from like 98 to 99 to 2002 or 2001, and you just didn't have that temperature. And so we were looked at as saviors. I don't want to say called saviors, but we were looked at like of like these golden children returned all this glory to back home. And so, when I got kicked out of school, so fast forward, I was,
brought Ohio State back.
100%.
Right?
I say that with pride.
I say with pride too.
And I'm not ashamed to say
happy to be a part of it.
Happy to be a part of it.
Like they were in the Outback Bowl in 2001. You know what I mean? Wasn't nobody talking about on the national scene. No one was talking about Ohio. It wasn't. We were. This was coming off of the era of the U and Miami and all them. And USC and Ohio State wasn't really now.
It wasn't a premier program.
No, now from 2000 to now we're heading to 2020.
We've been a premier program. A premier program. You're talking about top tier, premier, top 5 program every single year, bro.
We're in the top 5 and we're somebody you don't want to see. And
this was all a part of that. And so
that's awesome.
Where my stuff basically falls apart was that you have that much success, and then you have as equal amount of failure. So, right, when I got suspended from school, this was like the first time in my life that I didn't even know. Like, so people are talking about, man, I'm stressed, I'm depressed. Like, I didn't even know that was a thing, right? And if you're having a hard time with football, you can go to the weight room, you can go to a coach, you can go to practice, and you can do something immeasurably, or you can see yourself on film. You can say, okay, I'm getting a little bit better, or I'm not, or you know how it goes. You know what I'm saying? You can measure that. But when it came to just me mentally, I was like, man, I can't sleep at night. I'm always thinking about this stuff. Like, my mind keeps on racing. I'm real restless. We were 18-year-old kids. It's consuming you.
You're young. That's all at that point. That's the biggest thing of your life.
And so just imagine at 18, somebody would have said, Jay, you make your day up now, right? No, so instead of going to practice and this team building your schedule, now you build your schedule and you manage yourself. That's a hard thing.
That would have been a bad move for me.
Yeah, but so you're saying to yourself, like, how do you –
I tried that, I got in trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you manage yourself? It's a hard thing for an 18-year-old kid, but even when you started this the show off, you preface like, man, just keep in mind these guys are still kids. Rewind 20 years ago, sometimes people aren't so forgiving. They see you beat up all these people and run over these people and stiff arm them, but they still have to realize you're still an 18-year-old kid.
Because they don't.
You feel where I'm coming from?
Half of the reason they don't view us that way is a physical thing, right?
100%.
They're not used to seeing 18-year-olds who are 250 pounds of solid muscle who are bigger than some of these people watching's dad, right? They're not used to seeing 6'6", 275-pound 19-year-olds
throw people around
who can toss guys around. That they're like, that's not a kid, that's a man. But
physically
it might look like a man. That's kids, man.
And you
trying to figure it out like everybody else. They're gonna make mistakes. They're gonna drink. They're gonna, I remember when JT Barrett got the DUI 2 years ago, and everyone, loved JT Barrett. I love JT Barrett. All of a sudden he got the DUI, and everybody was like, ooh, that looks bad. I'm like, what do you mean it looks bad? I'm like, what were you doing at 20 when you were in college? Let me guess, drinking. Man, why is it different? Because his name is JT Barrett.
Just because his name is JT Barrett.
Why is he held to some supernatural standard of perfection? This dude is a kid. He's a college student. That's what they do.
And you have to look at things like that. And that's kind of like where we was at. And so you fast forward, and I was out of football for 2 years, but I ended up going to L.A., and L.A. was, when I look back on it, it was great that it happened to me, but if I look from a man's perspective, I ran from Ohio because I got tired of going out to every restaurant, every gym, everybody just talking about the same stuff over and over.
You were too polarizing of a figure.
Yeah, so
at too young of an age, everyone knew you. Like, where you gonna go? They're not gonna know who you are.
Man, I was at the Westerville Athletic Club, Lifetime Fitness. And you hear the same questions and conversations over and over and over again. And so, I run to LA, and at that time I was like, man, I'm just going ahead and get away. But I was really running from everything Ohio, and as a result from doing that, all I did was go out there. And people just have to understand culture. Culture is totally different out there. Getting high, drinking, having a good time, Monday through Sunday, January through December. It's a normal way of life out there.
Talking about the Vegas life.
No, in L.A.
Oh, in L.A. Yeah.
So I get out there. It's the West Coast. It's a total different environment. But I was happy to be away from so much pressure. And so then when reality kicked back in, and they said, hey, can you come and can you get, to go to the combine? Really in the back of my mind, I was like, I could just turn this thing back on. I was kind of like one of those delusional kids, like, I'll just come and just turn back on. And it didn't happen like that.
You just be Maurice the Beast again overnight.
Yeah.
Not realizing, like, dude, you haven't really been doing tons of combine prep.
Not even combine prep. There's a zone that I don't even know, that people don't realize, that when you're an athlete and you're competing every day, and to compete every day, that's a zone, bro. You can't reproduce that.
Headspace that you have to
condition yourself
to be in. Yes.
And the only way you can.
What's funny about you, I don't want to cut you off, but it's funny about you saying about that zone. During the NFL lockout year, no one picked me up, right? So I had a full year off of football, right in the smack dab in the middle of my career. I had got 5 years in, and then I'm like, oh no, I got nothing to do. Yeah. And I fell out of that zone, that headspace, right? I
Absolutely.
fell out of that hyper competitive, ultra focused.
That's a space.
Heightened sense of urgency and feeling my body and knowing everything that's happening with me. And I got complacent and kind of comfortable during that year off. I did some vacation and went overseas, kicked it a little bit, yada yada. And just saw something I always wanted to see. Finally had a little bit of money and wanted to.
I can move around.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden I get a call. I was in Italy. I get a call from my agent. Man, they just want to bring you in for workout. I'm like, oh, like I didn't. Okay, dope. Okay, let's do it. And I was like, I gotta get in shape. Yeah. I was like, and when's the workout? He was like, you got about 3 weeks. He said, man, you're always in shape. I was like, not this time. Yeah, I'm with you. And I literally hopped the flight back to the crib and called up, my trainer in Miami. Was like, man,
I gotta kill myself.
You got 12 days. You gotta break me. Try to kill me. Like, I gotta be in something because I need 12 days to get, break me down, and then I need a good 3 or 4 days to recover before I go to this workout. And that's what we had to do. And he was like, yeah, dude, you're not with it up here right now. I was like, I know, because I've been kicking it. Like I had to re-engage and get back into the system. Because it's kind of a system. You got to plug yourself back in and download that software back into your mind. Like, come on, now we're back in killer mode. Like, let's go. Man, so that's hard to do. I imagine for a youngster.
I was in LA for 2 years. Chilling.
Yeah, you were a kid at that time. I was doing it at 26, so it was different. Like, I knew how to get back into it. At that point, you were a kid. You probably didn't realize you were out of it.
No. So I knew I was out of it. This what happened, man. And the kid, and these are just things people don't even know. Like, so you can go and live somebody else's reality, and I'll break this down, right? So when I went to LA, I was around a lot of friends who were successful. These guys, lived in Beverly Hills, lived in Hollywood Hills, lived in Santa Monica, lived in Malibu, and I would be around these guys. And so being around these guys and being around the women and all the stuff that comes along with that, the constant partying, the kicking it,
I'm jealous.
you can lose yourself being around somebody who's successful, and you would believe that it's your success.
Man,
you feel where I'm coming from?
One more time for the people in the back.
Yeah, I'm serious.
Real.
And so
you start hanging around and feeling like it's their success. Like, hold on, no.
But that's what happened to me. So I was hanging around people who. So just think about this. I've never been around people who had $20 million homes, $10 million homes. I remember Coutinho Mobley was living across the street. I'm with my guy over his. Like, these guys just got massive houses. We talking about coming and go. Like, and as a kid, as a kid, I was fascinated by this. I'm seeing my guy pull in his garage, and he's lifting cars up, and then these cars coming from up underground. I'm seeing 3 and 4 Ferraris and Lamborghinis and all stuff as a 19-year-old, 20-year-old kid you're impressed by. You feel where I'm coming from? And so now you having, LA is the capital of, like, beautiful women who are insecure. You're having sex with beautiful women all day or just throughout the week, and it's a constant party. And so to go back into a mode where I only play football.
Kicking it.
Yeah, bro. But for me, I was only playing football.
Why you ain't call me for these parties, bro?
The good thing I didn't. You're right. The good thing I didn't. No.
My number ain't changed.
Yeah. So just to have those experiences before I had success. Those things were things that motivated me to live this life, but I was living it, but it wasn't mine. And you can, when you're young, you can get confused, bro, and that's what it was. And so,
you're blinded by the lights.
You're blinded by the lights, bro. And so what ended up happening was, when it all falls apart, I hated myself. You know what I'm saying? And I hated myself because, you ever do something, you play yourself. Like, I know Colin always say don't play yourself, but yeah.
Congratulations, you just played yourself.
Yeah, but a person knows when they play themselves, and they like.
That's the worst feeling.
And so I knew I played myself. Like, I knew I played myself from lost opportunity. I knew I played myself in college. I knew I played myself just at different points in my life. I knew I had played myself. And then when I catch a criminal case, I knew I played myself even more. And so when you play yourself and you're young, you don't know how to process that emotion. You hate yourself. And when you hate yourself, you abuse yourself because you're like, man, I'm going to drink, I'm going to smoke just because that makes me feel better. But it's actually abusive. Yeah, but it's abusive to yourself, but you need to work out of that. And so nobody wants to work out of a bad situation. Everybody just wants Maurice,
how do you do that, though? Like, for people out there who are listening that know they've been down there, that know they played themselves and that hate themselves for it, and they're somewhere literally trying to sabotage themselves out of self-hate.
Yeah.
What are some of the steps to slowly pull yourself out of that rut? Because that's a tough rut to be in.
Yeah, so my process was a little bit different. Thankfully, I had a chance to do it in prison. And in prison, I was for the first 4 years, and so I've always been a hard worker, a focused guy. If I wanted to do something, I'd do it, right? So when I went to prison, I ended up basically having to be locked down for 20 hours out the day. And so, so the only way you can change yourself, bro, is through the renewal of your mind, right? That's biblical, right? The only way you can really change anything about yourself is to change your perspective, increase your level of consciousness, and start to read books, right? And I believe in books. Like, books are people. Like, I think also books are a way for you to kind of take shortcuts, because when a person's creating a book, they're really taking all of their life experience, all their wisdom, and they're jotting it down. They're giving it to you for $20, $30.
You like, absorb that knowledge and without all the pain and hardship they
went through everything. You know what I'm saying? And so, but I've always known that from watching film on people, right? And so the more I would start to read books, the more I would just like anything else, right? So when you were playing ball, you looked at somebody who played the defensive line, and you modeled yourself, or you tried to model your work ethic, your mentality, or your behavior behind that person, right?
Isn't it amazing how you can watch film on a guy and you can you're in a room watching film with no sound.
Yep.
And I could watch, because my coach gave me a disc my rookie year of Michael Strahan. He said, you built like Strahan. I want you to watch his film. I want you to just sit and I used to watch hours of this dude's film. Mm-hmm. It's amazing how you can just watch someone play a sport, and by the end of watching that film, you have an idea of what kind of person they are, personality.
100%.
You know who they are
100%.
based on how they play. Are they hustling? Are they scrappy? Are they doing all those extra things? Are they getting little extra gut shots in on somebody? Like, just you have a great idea of their personality just by watching them.
Just by watching, you understand exactly who they are. And I don't know if you ever watch. You saying that's like a football thing, like for people who have like insight. I know exactly what you're talking about, though, based on how they play the game, and you know how much effort certain stuff takes, right?
Exactly.
So I agree with
you. Frame a reference for that, so you're like, "Ooh, man, that dude would go hard," because I know what that takes.
I know exactly what that takes. Every play, all day, third down, the whole nine. But like, what ended up happening was that's what happened to me, man. I ended up reading a ton, and I think, and I always say this, and this is probably one of the most important things that I've learned in my lifetime, right? So when I thought that I was a football player, I thought like I came out of my mother's vagina to be a football player. Like, that's what, when you're young, you think like that's like what you have, right? And so that's like the micro way of looking at something. You take like the actual talent and skill that you have, and you think that you were made to do that. And actually that's not, right? What it is that you have, if you take it back and look at it from a macro standpoint, you have the ability to goal set. You have the ability to be task-driven. You have the ability to take instruction. You have the ability to corral people. You have the ability to do all these other things. You have a skill set. You just decided to place it on football when you were younger because you thought that would basically bring you financial freedom or secure your future. Yeah. And so when I started looking at it like that, I said, oh, shit, I like to read. And I was like, fuck, I can take this hard work and this ambition, because what happened was I was in prison and I still felt ambitious, right?
Yeah.
And this was, I'm not
still stuff you want.
I'm rested. I'm not drinking. I'm not smoking. I'm not partying. This is just like a structured environment. And so I said to myself, fuck, I was selling myself short just saying I wanted to be an athlete. I said, man, you could take this skill set and place it on any platform that you want to once you got out. You just have to accumulate the resources or things of that nature. And so I got out of prison and
you had like an aha moment while you were in there.
Yeah, but that's what happened. And I got out, and from there I said, okay, I was totally cool with starting where I was at. And so I knew it would make sense to anybody else. I got out of prison at, 27. And once I got out, I was like,
still so young.
Yeah, still young.
That's what you didn't realize probably. You probably felt like, oh, I'm washed. Like, no, dude, you only 27. You a kid.
No, so I tell you what happened. Like, I stopped thinking about time when I got out of prison. Like, I just didn't care. Like, so remember, you always hear me say it, but it really comes from prison. I stopped caring about, like, I had to be at this point in my life, right? And I think, like, when you just accept that, you can say, okay, I'm not about to put pressure on myself that I have to be doing this and then, because you have to discover that, like, where does I have to be at this point in my life come from? That's like a societal pressure that people just vaguely put on themselves.
It's what we see, right?
It's what you see.
Social media makes it even worse because you see, well, my buddy here is 32. He's married. He already has 2 kids. Well, shoot, I'm 34. Now I don't have any kids or wife. Oh, my God, I'm behind. And all of a sudden, anxiety.
They put that on themselves.
Exactly.
And you don't even have to. And that's kind of what happened. And I just tell you about my journey after that. And so I came back, and I didn't even want to play football, but I had no money. I had like $400 when I got out of prison. And then I went to Omaha, and I played for the Omaha Nighthawks, and they paid us like $50,000, and what's his taxes about $30,000. And so I ended up basically starting to I used to start training guys, right? So I was going back and forth to whatever the fitness gym was, and I was training guys, and I was making like $25 a session, and then trying to do more group stuff to make more money, and really just trying to figure it out. And then from there, about 2013, and I was just just paying my bills. I was making like $1,300-$1,400 a month, but I wasn't tripping because like even when I got out of prison, life was just moving so fast. I was happy just to be doing something simple, right? So then, I always knew some of the stuff I wanted to do in business, and I said, man, at some point I'll get into business, and I get my life back to where it's supposed to be. So I came back to Ohio, and out the blue, ESPN did a 30 for 30. When they did 30 for 30,
Youngstown Boys.
Youngstown Boys, yeah.
Youngstown Boys, for those who listening, ESPN 30 for 30, Youngstown Boys, the story of the gentleman to my right's basically transformation from high school into college superstar and the coach. Then that's credited with bringing him along in Jim Tressel. And by the way, how is you and Coach Tressel's relationship?
Oh, still good. I talk to him more. He's the president of Youngstown State, so I talk to him more now than probably ever. But we talk on a consistent basis. Yeah,
I spoke to him last week randomly.
So
that's my guy.
Yeah, he's definitely still accessible, and he's helped me in a tremendous amount of ways. Like even since he's been done coaching, and I've been into my life, but we had a chance to rock and roll and do the film, and after that, I went around the country for about 2 or 3 years, and I made myself some money. But even going around the country for 2 or 3 years, and a lot of people may not realize this, but that in itself can be lonely at times, right?
Sure. So you're traveling, airplanes, hotels.
People don't understand that. It looks fun. Like it looks fun. Oh, you're here, you're there, and
because you're going on a book tour at some point, and everybody's gonna be like, "Oh, that's cool. He gets to go and talk about his book."
But when you by yourself, bro,
airplane hotel. That's
all you doing. Or rental car. You going from A to B. And that's what happened. And then from there, I ended up getting into the transportation space. I ended up getting some trucks, and I grew a trucking company. I went from like 1 truck to about 12 trucks, and I got tired of that because I wasn't fulfilled doing that. And that's when that's when I stopped associating money with happiness. I got to say that didn't happen until about 2014 or 15. Because I started making more money. So I made a chunk of money when I was doing speaking. I basically spoke for a couple of years. I made a chunk of money doing that. I invested into some trucks, and then I started making more money than I've ever made before running trucks. And I was like, all right, awesome. I have more money, but I'm not like happier. It wasn't like I was sad, but my association with money, like the look I had on it before it happened, like it didn't line up. And so then I ended up basically going to start, which is called the Red Zone. That's basically a company that I own. It's a mental health and drug and alcohol agency. And when I started getting into the Red Zone, basically I was able to explain what mental health was to people, because I still go to counsel. I still go to Ohio State. I still see Dr. Brush down there. Still take.
Is that right?
Yeah, I still go all the time. I still got the same therapist at Ohio State, still take psychiatric medication every day. Like, I still, like, engage in the same services that I was in when I was in prison.
That's
right?
awesome.
This stuff happens. This
By
stuff
the way, PSA, and this is, if you guys listen to the Breakfast Club with Charlamagne and Angelique and all them, and Charlamagne had a book that I'd actually got from my middle brother, that deals with mental health. And,
yeah.
And a lot of times they'll make it about, black community, we got to get on it. Everyone needs to take their mental health seriously, not just the black community, but the reason we say black community is because in our community it's just not as talked about. And I'm glad that in these last handful of years it's started to be more of a prominent topic and things that are not taboo to discuss. It's beautiful, man.
100%. And I can kind of like tie everything all together at once and like bring it home. But we started with that. We started in Youngstown. We grew down to Columbus, and we went from a handful of people, 5 to 7 to 40, and now we got a staff of about 140, and we deal with mental health with everything from adolescents to adults, working with mental health and drug and alcohol needs. We probably house about 40 people that we treat on a consistent basis, and I've been doing that probably since about 16.
Nice.
And just kind of like just have been doing business. But then I ended up basically getting to what I'm into now, and I'll do this and then I'll wrap up how I got into the book. But I ended up basically getting into surgical centers, and so I own some vascular surgery centers. We have one in Columbus, one going up in Cleveland, and also in Youngstown.
Wow.
Yeah, and basically, when I was in prison, I used to do a ton of research and talking to people like within the senior care space. And what ended up happening was that in my seniors used to always tell me that when they would write me that they would feel like they were incarcerated because the kids would basically be grown and have their families and so on and so forth, move on with their lives, and they would feel lonely because people would basically die off and do what it is what they had done. And to make a long story short, I got with a partner from California. We started to talk about what he did, and he had a bunch of these centers out west. And I was telling him that I was in Ohio, and in the demographic that I work in, and me understanding the space, and basically I was getting ready to buy a building back home. And he said, if you purchased a building and you were interested inside the space, maybe we can partner up and do something. And I was, at that time I got into real estate real heavy. Real estate was the only thing I was investing in outside of what I normally did. And then, the next thing you know, I ended up basically getting into this space. And the more I started to evolve and the more I started to take this skill set and not only put it in a drug and alcohol agency and not only put it in surgical centers and also put it in real estate, I said, man, this skill set that athletes have and this social equity, right? So there's not a lot of people walking around 6'7", 275 pounds and who are likable. And I just don't believe that we leverage ourselves enough out after playing a game. But then also I go to these universities and I speak to these kids, and I push and I stress to them that just because you make a mistake or just because you make a hiccup, it doesn't mean you have to destroy your life. And me creating a book was all for the purpose of me building a residential facility for student athletes. So 100% of the proceeds that I'm doing for the book is to build a residential facility here for a lot of guys. So there's a lot of guys.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I'm not taking $1 from the book, right? So I've learned how to run residential facilities for running them for the last 4 years.
He's done so well in life that he can sell something and not even care about the profits.
Nah, man.
God bless you. I can't wait. Matter of fact, let me leave here and get to work right now. I can't wait to be doing that well. No, that's really awesome, though, man.
Yeah, but what you do, you don't realize how much you save somebody else's situation. Like, you can have a kid who just has a moment, who can be a superstar, who has a moment in college, who just needs a little direction or redirecting, just like me. If I had some redirection or some supportive services or a supportive environment when I left the game, or just imagine how many guys when they get done playing, they just don't have a space to land to kind of help them figure it out.
And this is part of kind of your message that you give back when you go to all these, like, just quickly ramble off a handful of places that you've been to speak at, college campuses or teams that you've addressed.
Well, places I'll name these two with pride because I continue to do work with them. The UConn's men's basketball team and
that's awesome.
LSU's men's basketball team, the LSU football team, Alabama, Notre Dame.
Okay. Nick Saban and all them down there.
Yeah, Nick Saban, Florida State.
Are their players really bigger than ours at Ohio State?
Brother, listen to me. Listen to me. Hey.
Their facilities are serious, aren't they?
Hey, listen to me. I'm gonna speak about the players. I've never in my life been to a campus and seen. Listen to me. I've been to LSU, Mississippi State, Texas A&M, Florida State, Florida Atlantic, Tennessee, Kentucky, Ohio State. I've been everywhere that you can possibly name. Arizona State, UCLA. I've been to, and I know I'm missing a ton more. Notre Dame, Indiana. I've been all over the country. I've never. Listen to me. I've never. I've never. I seen these jokers down in Alabama. I said, bro, these got to be the biggest jokers I've ever seen in my life.
Breed monsters down there.
When I say these boys are country big, these boys are humongous.
Is it shrimp coach? What is?
So
what they feeding them? Because Ohio State, I thought when I got back involved with Ohio State and started going back to the Woody Hayes and seeing these kids, I remember thinking we was never this big when we were. You know.
Yeah, so I mean, all these guys were. And I don't know, and obviously I don't know what they feed them or eat them, but they have a great strength and conditioning program. And I had a chance to hang out with the strength and conditioning coach. You got to think the strength and conditioning coach makes about $1 million a year down there. You know that?
I should have got into that.
You didn't know that? Yeah, hey, bro, listen to me. And this is, these are, you can Google this stuff. I think he makes $800 to $1 million bucks.
Basically, he earns every dime.
Listen to me, bro. He earns every dime. And I don't. Have you been over to a college facility lately?
Not other than Ohio State.
So, man, you go to these places. Like I was just down in.
I heard Tennessee's was amazing.
But I go to Florida. When I say, and I've not been to Ohio State in I don't know how long, but at every single turn in the facility, these people have hot food. We're not talking about just
amazing,
bro.
Like when you see the setup now versus when we were in college, and you're like, could you imagine if we had access to what they have access to?
Man, when I say these
supplements, just
they have everything. I'm talking. This is like
the Willie now. I'm thinking we built like we pledged They give me them chicken fingers. Like I be wanting to go snatch up their food. Like y'all understand?
Yeah. When I say my man, they get it rocking, but.
So good. So I just want to tie it all back into this is why you're doing your book. This is the kind of message you're putting out there.
Yes.
And the proceeds are going to something you're trying to build.
Yeah, we're gonna build a residential facility. The books can be purchased at MauriceClarettonline.com. 100% of the proceeds.
That's MauriceClarettonline.com. Excellent.
Yeah, and 100% of the proceeds are to build a facility in Columbus, Ohio, and we'll work with both high school and collegiate athletes. And this is all based around student athletes. And so we have stuff for regular people who are not student athletes or athletes in general that I can send those to. But this is all for these guys. And my and this is stuff that I'll be hands-on in. This is just the redirecting of people who have a time in their life that probably isn't favorable to them.
Excellent. Maurice, I want to thank you, not just as the host of the 2 Cents podcast, but as a brother, as a friend. Thank you for making time. I always tell people, and you know this, the most valuable thing you can give anyone is your time.
Is your time.
Right? We all got a couple dollars here and there. We all got items we can give and material things. You give someone your time, that tells me more about where your heart is than anything else. I want you to know that I appreciate your time.
I appreciate you, brother.
And you'll have my time whenever you want it. Should you ever need it, because that's just the promise I'm making to you to be available. And I feel like more of us should do that for one another once our careers end. Sometimes when the locker room life ends, we forget to continue to engage with each other and connect and continue to build. And I think we're missing opportunity as athletes when we neglect that. So it's important that I have moments like this. That means a lot to me. I want you to know
I appreciate
that,
it.
Sincerely. As always, this has been the 2 Cents podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in. Like, subscribe, all that stuff that you guys already do, and I appreciate it. Any final words? What are your thoughts on this Ohio State season and where you think it could go? And I want to preface that by saying, yes, we had breaking news this morning, very early this morning. I got a phone call. I'm hearing that Chase Young will not Chase Young, number 2 for Ohio State, the best defensive end in the country, to me the best football player in college on planet Earth right now, and a Heisman candidate will now not be available for the Maryland game because we are getting word that there's a possible investigation happening based around agents and money and something that could have happened. I don't know. I hate to give out bad information if I don't have all of the facts, but there is a pending investigation from 2018, and it's bad enough that he will not play tomorrow versus the Maryland Terrapins, whatever the hell a Terrapin is. And,
I don't know.
There's a chance he could miss the rest of the season, which could be devastating. We all know Ohio State lost its best player on the team last year to to a groin injury in Nick Bosa, who's now tearing up the NFL. And people don't realize Nick Bosa was the best player on the team, and we lost him, and that was a huge blow. And we still only lost one game that season. Tells you how good that team could have been. Your thoughts on quickly the Buckeye season, this Chase Young stuff, and where they could still go?
Well, I think they'll be all right. I think that he will be all right.
He'll be rich.
Yeah, he'll be very rich. Yeah, so he'll be all right. The fact that we're still even talking about athletes taking money or potentially taking money, even if he did, is ridiculous. And I'll kind of end it right there. But thank you all for listening. And you forgot to tell the people to download it. They got to download, subscribe, the whole nine.
Please download, subscribe, the whole nine, and make sure you guys go check out Maurice Clarett. Go to his IG page. Tell us your IG page again.
Yeah, Maurice Clarett, and come and check me out.
Look him up. He's on Twitter. He's active on both IG and Twitter. I want you guys to go on there, engage with him, and look for some new content from both of us. And obviously, the 2 Cent Show will promote this podcast and this content, and you guys are not going to want to miss this episode. Thank you so much, and good day, folks.
Yep.